Hello bookworms! Today I'm here with another recent reads video, so I'm going to be wrapping up the next 5 books that I read in 2020. I think this will put me up to 15 books read, which is pretty exciting. I think I'm actually considering raising my Goodreads goal. I know that I said that I wanted to read less. So far that's not happening. So I think it makes sense to probably increase it back to at least 100 books. We'll see what happens. I think right now as of filming, it says that I'm 6 books ahead of my goal. So that's pretty good. This is a really exciting wrap up because the first book that I'm going to talk about is Chain of Gold. I'm so excited that I got an early copy of this one. I obviously started reading it immediately, like the night that it showed up in the mail. I was laying in my bed reading this one. I've been anticipating this book for so long, and thankfully it far exceeded my already sky-high expectations. So before anyone asks, yes, you do need to read all of the other books to read this book, and you also need to read a couple of the short stories in Ghosts of the Shadow Market before going into this one. Otherwise, you're gonna have no context on some of the things that they're referencing in here. So Chain of Gold was one of my 2 most anticipated books of the year, the other one being Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas, which I'm currently reading. But personally, my favorite era of the Shadowhunters is the Infernal Devices era. So following Will, Jem, and Tessa, those are like my golden trio. I love them so much. I really love being in Victorian London, and this series takes us right back there. We're following the immediate descendants of those 3 characters that I just mentioned, and oh my god, it's so good. We get so many character cameos, so many chances at seeing, well, my personal old favorites. And we also get an amazing cast of new characters. So first and foremost, we are following a group of 4 young boys. So we've got James Herondale, Matthew Fairchild, Thomas Lightwood, and Christopher Lightwood. The way that I've been describing them is that these 4 boys essentially fill the void in my heart that has always craved a Marauders story from Harry Potter. So it's just 4 young guys who have such an excellent dynamic. They are the very best of friends. They support each other no matter what. Each of them has their own very distinct personalities and very real issues that they are dealing with. Together, they're just such a great team, and they're so funny. Like, the humor between all of them had me laughing out loud so much. Like, their jokes were hilarious, and I just love all 4 of them. So they're basically the Edwardian London version of Harry Potter's Marauders. And then we also get 3 new female characters who mean the world to me. So we have Cordelia Carstairs, who is on the cover of this book. Then we have Lucy Herondale, who is James's younger sister. And then we are also following Anna Lightwood. And the 3 of these girls are incredible. Cordelia is one of the best characters, like, ever in the Shadowhunter world. She's amazing. She's so strong. She's fiercely loyal. She's so willing to help her friends. She loves unabashedly, and oh my gosh, she's just so great. And then we also have Lucy Herondale, who is going to be her future parabatai, and the 2 of them have the cutest friendship ever. And I really love seeing stories where females support other females, and the 2 of them, their friendship is just so, oh my god, it's so good. And then finally we have Anna Lightwood, and Anna is so awesome. She is totally like breaking convention, and she does not give a damn what other people think about her. In a time when females tend to dress very feminine, she tends to dress more masculine, and she loves who she loves. She's constantly like going after other women, and she has some really sweet romances, and she's a huge player, but she's awesome. And I really love that she just is herself, and she has kind of made a name for herself within this world. And while there are some other people that look down on her because of the way that she chooses to live, she does not let it bother her. Like, she just is herself, and she's very secure, and she is someone to be admired. So before I claim that I have a new favorite character in the Shadowhunter world, I think that I really need to reflect a little bit more, and I don't even know how I would choose one because I seriously loved all of the characters in this book so much, and we're only 1 book in, which is like crazy to me. I think that part of my enjoyment stems from the fact that I have read every single other one of Cassandra Clare's books, and I have such a strong connection to the lore of the Shadowhunters, to the world that Cassandra Sandra has created for all of these characters. And every time that there is like a character cameo, I swear my heart like skips a beat. I get so excited. And the mere mention, like the first time that someone is on page, I'm already excited and I already have all of these feelings just based on what characters' last names are. It's like really nice to go into a book already having a really strong connection, because I tend to be a character driven reader, and because I love these characters so much, this obviously worked for me really well. The minute that I finished reading Chain of Gold, I already wanted to start rereading it. That is how much I love this book. I know that I will definitely be rereading it before the end of the year because it's just delightful. So I'm really excited for this one to come out so that everybody can experience the story, because it's really, really good. And I just can't wait to see how everything is going to play out in the next books. This one, if you can't tell, I definitely gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Before the Devil Breaks You by Libba Bray. This is the 3rd book in the Diviner series, so obviously I don't want to give any spoilers for it, but this series has been all over BookTube. Everyone's been so excited for the 4th book to come out, and it just released on February 4th, so that's why I wanted to read this one so that I can dive into the last one. It had been a while since I read Lair of Dreams, so I watched the live show that some of my friends did over on Madeline from Novel Inc.'s channel, and I used that as my refresher before jumping into this book, just as a reminder of what was going on with certain characters, because while I definitely know each character and I know their defining traits, I was also a little bit fuzzy on what were the things that happened before, because I think that I read Lair of Dreams in 2017 or 2018. It was quite a while ago at this point. So this one is obviously a very beloved series on BookTube. So many people have been hyping up the series and getting ready for the final book, and it is with very good reason. So Libba Bray takes 1920s Manhattan and she infuses it with the supernatural, and these books, like each and every one of them, has legitimately scared me. I think that they're so beautifully written, and I think the storylines that she has chosen as the different supernatural things are just ones that have really gotten to me. Like the first book has a serial killer, the second book deals with dreams, and there's a lot going on. But I have to say that I was really glad that this one wasn't just like a filler book to get us to the last book. There was a lot of action in here and a lot of really important things happened. It definitely raised the stakes a lot. So going into the 4th one, I'm already like super tense because I just don't know what's gonna happen. Another one of the things that I really appreciate in here is that Libba Bray doesn't shy away from discussing the racism of the 1920s, and 2 of our main characters, one of them comes from Harlem and one of them comes from Chinatown, and both of those are areas where I personally have never learned a ton about in regard to the 1920s. I mean, Chinatown is a place that I frequent like all the time now because that is where the best ice cream in New York City is. It's really interesting to get a look into the history of those places because they're often neglected. Like normally when you think of 1920s Manhattan, you're really only thinking of like Flappers and the Follies and that kind of stuff. So Libba has really put together like such a diverse cast of characters, and that's partially why this is such a standout series for me, because each of the characters is so different, but it's not like she's writing it to check off boxes like, oh, we've hit this one and we've hit representation for here. Like it's super true to life. These people are people that I see out in the streets of Manhattan every single day, so it just makes sense and it makes them feel so real, and I've grown to love this cast. Like from the first book on, my love for them just keeps getting stronger and stronger. In this one especially, there's also a really satirical take on America, and it's very reflective of things that are happening in our nation today. And there are a lot of parallels to the same kinds of issues, like dealing with immigration and different views that people have that are just nonsense. So I really liked how she translated it into this book. So while this 3rd book did answer a lot of questions for me, it also left me with like so many more questions. So I'm definitely going to be picking up the 4th book very soon. And in case you can't tell, this was another 5-star read for me, so I'm really excited because this is actually a pretty positive recent reads, whereas some of my other ones have had some books that just did not work for me. Then I mentioned that I started reading The Secret Garden in January, but I didn't finish it in January, but thankfully I finished it in February. So the next book that I have to talk about is The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgkin Burnett. I ended up switching over and primarily listening to the audiobook of this one. So I listened to the audiobook that's narrated by Karen Gillan. It was free on Apple Books at one point, and I obviously immediately downloaded it because I love Amy Pond. So it was really magical to have her be the one that was telling me the story, and I really liked the accents that she used throughout it. This is a book that I truly can't believe it's taken me all of these years to finally read. I remember really loving the 1990s film adaptation of The Secret Garden when I was younger, but I just never read the book, and now there's a new adaptation that's coming out in the spring, so I really wanted to actually read the source material before I go out and see that movie. I ended up buddy reading this book with Alexa from Alexa Loves Books, although she read it so much quicker than me. She finished in 2 days in January, and it took me 40 days because there was a long period where I just wasn't picking it up. And then once I made the decision to switch over to just audio, that helped me and I finished it a lot quicker. But I did page through the Minalima edition too, and I really like all of the interactive elements and all of the illustrations in it. I think it is so beautiful. Honestly, this whole series of books is one of my favorites. So in this book, we are following a very spoiled child named Mary, and after tragedy strikes, she ends up getting sent to Yorkshire to live with a very distant uncle. And I really liked her character arc over the course of the story because she starts really spoiled, but then people start pointing things out to her, and she ends up taking notice of her personality and kind of making intentional choices of how she wants to be and how she wants to interact with people and what she wants other people to think of her. And then once Mary starts learning a little bit, she ends up finding Colin, who is very sick. He's living in the house and everyone thinks that he's going to die, and Mary ends up really getting him to kind of push his boundaries and to try to get better. It's really her saying no to Colin and pointing out his behavior that's maybe not the best that gets him to overcome the boundaries that he's really set for himself. So in this book, the scenes in the garden were obviously my absolute favorite. I think it was really beautifully written, and I was really excited to see while I was reading about the author at the end of the book that Frances actually wrote this story after being inspired when she moved to Long Island and she was working on her own garden. So I thought that was fun. So even though I enjoyed a lot of the story, there definitely were some problematic elements to it, and specifically the way that race is discussed a couple times and some references to India, but I understand that it was written a really long time ago, so it's probably a little bit a product of its time. Not that that's an excuse, I'm just saying it's there and I see it and I don't think it's okay, but I didn't let it hinder my enjoyment of the story. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars. Next, I read Rush by Candy Steiner. This is the first book in the Palm South University series, and I read this one for free on Kindle Unlimited. It came very highly recommended by Jess from Peace Love Books. She constantly talks about Candy Steiner, and I've been wanting to try this author forever, so I ended up picking this one up on a whim. I honestly thought my first Candy Steiner book would be On the Rocks because that one sounded really appealing to me, but then Jess posted something in her stories about how Palm South University is basically Riverdale meets Gossip Girl with a hint of Friends, and I was like, I'm in the mood for that. I need that right now. So I ended up picking up Rush, and I really enjoyed it. It is written very episodic and very much in a way that will have you craving more. We were following a bunch of perspectives, but each chapter is very short, so you do get a lot of story within only a couple of pages, and then you're already looking forward to getting back to the next perspective once you finish. So it's very quick paced, and initially I had felt a little bit overwhelmed by the number of perspectives, but within less than 50 pages, maybe 40 pages or something, I was definitely fully invested in every single character that she introduced. So this book focuses on the Greek life at Palm South University in Florida. The first book is called Rush, so obviously this is when the semester is starting and all of the new freshmen are rushing different sororities and fraternities. We're primarily following female characters, but there are some male characters that are like very recurring. So I'm curious if we're going to end up getting more male perspectives as the series continues. It looks like this is actually the shortest book in the series, and they just kind of keep getting longer. There are 4 in total at the moment, and the 5th one's coming out later this year. So I can't speak to the accuracy of the Greek life because there was no Greek life at my college, but I can say that it was really fun to read about, especially because there wasn't any like hazing. It was all people being supportive of one another. It paints the Greek life experience in a really positive light, which is not necessarily a way that I've viewed it over my lifetime. I really appreciated the focus on friendship, and especially the way that friendships can change and evolve over time, and how often the people that are your best friends in high school are not going to be your best friends in the long run. There are so many other people out there, and people end up changing so much. So it's natural for friendships to kind of dissolve. There was only one storyline in here that seemed a bit unbelievable to me. Outside of that one, I definitely enjoyed everything else. It was super quick paced. It had me really invested, and I just could not put this book down. I am hoping that there will be a little bit more romance in future installments, because while there were some like fun hookups and stuff, there wasn't anything that was like truly romantic. I'm hoping that will change as the story progresses, because this was really quick paced and we are following so many people, so I feel like there's the opportunity for that to happen as the series keeps going. But I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was really fun. Candy Steiner's writing style really just worked for me, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars. And then finally, I ended up rereading The Devouring Gray by Christine Lynn Herman. So I actually ended up listening to this one on audiobook. I really wanted to reread this before I pick up The Deck of Omens, which I thankfully have an arc of, and I cannot wait to start reading. But I wanted to reread this because, first of all, I just love the book. And second of all, the first time that I read this was back in 2018. I got a super early PDF copy of it that Disney sent me because they thought that it was going to be something that I would enjoy, and they were so right. I pretty much love everything about this book, especially the setting, because it takes place in upstate New York in 4 Paths, and I really love the Hudson Valley. I think it is so beautiful and so atmospheric and has like this spooky element to it. So I already had like preconceived notions going in, and I was so excited, and I could just picture everything so vividly. And then on top of that, all of the lore in here is fascinating. We're following the descendants of founding families who have been tasked with protecting this town. There's this beast that lives within the forest, and it attacks the townspeople, but the founders are the ones that patrol and try to make sure that the beast is under control. But things are kind of escalating when we are starting this book, and the townspeople don't necessarily have the confidence that they used to have in the founders, and they're kind of revolting a little bit, and these teenage descendants that we're following are the ones that are really trying to figure everything out and help make this town a better place. Christine Lynn Herman's writing is absolutely beautiful and very lyrical, and this book reminded me a lot of Over the Garden Wall, because you want to try to avoid the forest, and whatever is happening in there, there's some kind of beast, and there's obviously that beast in the forest and Over the Garden Wall if you've seen it. And I also love each and every character in this book. We're following Violet, who has just moved to 4 Paths, Harper, who is one of my favorites, Isaac, who is my favorite, and Justin, who is like the golden boy, and his younger sister May. Each of them really brings something important to the table, and within the founders, there's always historically been alliances between families, but things are probably going to change once the 4 of them finally put some differences aside and try to work together. So since this was not the first time that I read this, I had so much fun reliving all of the moments that I remember from the first time around, and especially as I was nearing the end, I was so excited for the final chapter and for the epilogue, because I just remember those shocking things that happened, and I was just like waiting for them, and they totally got me once again. I definitely got chills, and I am so excited to pick up Deck of Omens. And this time around, I ended up giving the book 4.5 stars. And that is it. So those are the next 5 books that I read this time around. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you read anything that I mentioned. Let me know if you're excited for Chain of Golds, because I cannot wait for everyone to read this book. It's so good. So that's all that I have for this video, and I will see you guys soon in a new one. Bye!